So today we were going to talk about how to select the right journal. I introduce myself to the people who didn't know me before. My name is Dr. Yasmin Amra. I'm a customer research and analytic consultant from Elsevier and from the Middle East team, representing Elsevier. And this is the first webinar in the webinar series regarding how to select the right journal. I'm so delighted being with you today, and here we can start it. So before going into depth to the content of this webinar, any questions that are popping up during the session, please write it down on the Q&A box or even on the chat box. At the end of the session, I will be more than happy to reply to all of your questions. So the content of today, we will talk about the research cycle and what is the publication process and what are the common problems coming with the submission and some of the summary of the top tips for the authors and how to select the right journal. And we will going through a very brief overview about Scopus, and we will do some demo for some tools that we will discuss today to enable us to select the right journal and the most appropriate journal for our manuscript. So before starting, we need to have a very quick refresh about the research preparation cycle. The research preparation cycle mainly depends on the first step in the cycle, which is about the literature review or the literature search. Based on your literature search, you will need or you have the opportunity to select your topic. So identifying the key study or the area or the problem or the knowledge gaps or the research questions or the contribution, that's all coming based on your literature review and literature survey. And after you making that such a robust literature survey about the topic, you can select that tiny slides, piece of information or study you need to address in your manuscript. And this will coming after getting the information from your literature, from your reading, and then you can decide what is the publication type. So after reviewing the literature, you're developing your theoretical and conceptual framework, and then clarifying your research questions, or what we called in another expression, maybe knowledge gaps, maybe contribution, and then you can develop a research design, collecting the data, analyzing your data, drawing your conclusion, and you can at this stage decide what is the publication type you would like to publish, if it's a research article or a review article, or maybe a book chapter. After deciding your publication type, you need just to select your journal. Before your submission and before you deciding to submit your manuscript, you need to select your journal, and selecting of your journal and the most appropriate one is as important as you writing your manuscript. And of course, to finalize all of this, you can work with your colleagues, you can make a collaboration, if this collaboration is nationally or internationally, and of course, you can get some funding opportunities just to fund your project and fund your publication. So this is the whole series of the whole cycle of the research preparation cycle. After you deciding the right journal, you were going through what is called the peer review process, and that's coming under the umbrella of the publication. The peer review process, as we can see here in that figure, consists of three main personas, who are the author, the editor, and the reviewer. So you are the main in this cycle, you are the researcher, the author. So without your submission, without your manuscript, this process will not gonna happen. So you have your manuscript, and before going to submit your manuscript, you need to select the right journal. After selecting the right journal, you decide to submit your paper. After submitting your paper, your manuscript, will going straight away to the editor of the journal of your selection. The editor will going through your manuscript and making what is called a very quick overlook about your work. And at this stage, the editor can decide if he will accept to be assigned to reviewers, or even it will be disc rejection. So after the editor just taking that kind of initiative from the value of the contribution that you're trying to representing in your manuscript, he decided to assign reviewers to review your manuscript. After assigning the reviewers, that all your work will going to the reviewers, and the reviewers will be evaluating your manuscript in a very critical way, and all the reviewers should be expert in your manuscript, in your topic, and in your field of or your study area that you're trying to deliver in your manuscript. So the reviewers can give you some kinds or some types of recommendations, and it can be under one, minor recommendations or minor revision. The second can be major revision. The third can be revise and resubmit. The fourth, that can be disk rejection. After getting back from the reviewers, the editor will going through the recommendation letter from the reviewers, and then will forward the reviewers' comments to the author, and then the author has to address all the comments and recommendations that coming out from the letters from the reviewers. And after making your revision, you will return back all the paper or your manuscript with the revised one to the editor, and the editor will have another look about your responses to the reviewers and your revised parts in the manuscript. And then the editor maybe can forward your revised manuscript to the reviewers, or maybe the editor will be satisfied about the progress that you have done in your manuscript, and then it will be successfully accepted. This is the whole cycle. And for the disk rejection, we have many reasons for that. Sometimes the reviewers is overloaded with many papers to be evaluated, to be reviewed with the reviewers. And sometimes the editor will not be able to assign any more reviewers to review your article. In that case, it can be disk rejected due to that reason. And if this is the reason, that the editor should mention that in the rejection letter. Another kind of reason can be the reason for the disk rejection is if your manuscript is not in a good state. It needs some more evidence, some more analysis. So sometimes the editor just decided that you have the evidence deficiency in your manuscript, and the editor decided that not to lose much more time from the reviewers to review such kind of manuscript, and the manuscript needs much more time and effort to be done to be ready and to meet the minimum criteria of the editor perspective, from the editor perspective, just to assign reviewers based on the information that you're trying to represent in your manuscript. So this is the whole process for the peer review process, publication. What about the leading to acceptance? What is the main criteria here that should be fulfilled in your manuscript and in your topic, in your study, in your knowledge gap, and in your contribution? You should be in attention into details. If each tiny details in your manuscript, you should be careful about it. Check and double check your work. Consider the reviewers' comments. And in that one, you need to consider all the reviewers' comments. You need to address all the recommendations from the reviewers. You have your own choice just to agree with the reviewers' comments, or you don't agree with that. But if you don't agree with the reviewer comments, you need to mention your scientific justification for your disagreement. So it's open, no problem. It just to disagree with the reviewer comment, but I need to mention some of the scientific justification for that. The English must be as good as possible, so I need to make a proofreading for my manuscript before trying to submitting to the journal. The presentation of your manuscript should be in a very good and concise way. The presentation of each section should work in a harmony way, and each section should be intercorrelated to each other. And there is a very concise kind of information that can be presented by all the sections in your manuscript. Take your time with revision, and you need to acknowledge each one who helped you in your manuscript, which means that if you are, for example, if you are taking a sample from the company and you are trying to making some of the experimental work on that sample and you get some data and findings from these experiments, and you're trying to elaborate all of these information and findings in your manuscript, you have to mention and you have to acknowledge the company that gives you such kind of sample, because all the findings from your manuscript based on the sample that you have already taken from that company. So I need to acknowledge everyone who helped me in producing such kind of information or such kind of findings. Of course, the proofreader, if you have a proofreader that's already proofread your manuscript, of course, there is a way here to acknowledge any proofreading that helped us or helped you in just writing your manuscript. Of course, all the contribution and all the information in your manuscript should be new, original, and previously unpublished. You need to critically evaluate your own manuscript, which is coming from once you have just written the first draft of your manuscript. After reviewing it, you and your colleagues, just like will leave the manuscript a little bit away for 1 week or maybe 10 days. And then I will return back to read my manuscript again. I will read it with an open and fresh eye. And with that kind of reviewing, I can critically evaluate my own manuscript. And of course, all the ethical rules must be obeyed. The common problems that comes with submission, we can find that most of the submission of the papers can be rejected because all of these papers is out of the scope of the journal. And that's why we are here today, just need to put ourselves in the homework and in the priority list that we can do that priority list for the journals and what is the most appropriate one for our manuscript. So most of the papers is disrejected because it's out of the scope of the journal of your choice. Of course, the format of the paper should be aligned with the format that's requested by the journal. So you need to go to the journal website, you need to go to what is called the guide for authors. And once you're going to the guide for authors, you need to read carefully all the information that's already in the guide for authors for the format of the written sections in each for the journal, and of course how you can make a citation and how you can write down the references in your manuscript. So you need to keep careful to be careful about the format, just to be aligned with the format requested from the journal. So I need to read carefully the guide for authors. Of course, some of the problems coming out from the inappropriate suggested reviewers, and we can see these kind of suggested reviewers that we suggest some reviewers from our perspective, and this can be found in while we are writing what is called the cover letter. The cover letter is submitting along with your submission and with your manuscript, and you have identified many paragraphs, and each paragraph should identify how all the authors approve to submit all this manuscript to this particular journal. And of course, you need to elaborate the importance of your research and contribution. And of course, you need to add some of the suggested reviewers. The inappropriate suggested reviewers can be found in the cover letter has a very bad indication to the editor, which means that I need to honestly write down the reviewers that's related and that they are expert in the same topic and in the same kind of process and the studies that I'm trying to elaborate in my manuscript. Not just writing down the reviewer because I know him, not just writing down the reviewer because this is my colleague in my institution, not write down the reviewer because I know this guy and he is from another institution, but he is not expert to the field. I need to write down honestly all the reviewers that enable me and enhance the value of their contribution and the manuscript, and they are expert into the field of your study. Of course, inadequate response to reviewers, all the reviewers' recommendations should be addressed, even if you agree or disagree. But if you agree, that will be perfect. If you disagree, you need to put your scientific justification. You should write down your response. You should write down your addressing for the recommendations of the reviewers in a very polite and scientific way. Of course, inadequate standard of English can lead to disc rejection and never ever making a resubmission of rejected manuscript without revising this. So because all of these reasons, we need to look for the right journal, look for the appropriate one. So how to select the right journal? There are some checklists. We need to be sure that all checklists are clear to all of us, just to enable us to select the right journal. And the first thing is the right journal comes out from your references. So if once you are just having the draft of your manuscript, you are already having citation, and this citation going to many references, and these references can lead you to have that kind of list of the journals that's already published some of the paper that's rely and related to the topic that you are working in. So the first line here, or the first step, is to check the references in your article. This is a very good start, a very good indication to the list of journals that you need to write down. You need to prepare a priority list of the journal. So the first step of getting this priority list is coming out from your references in your draft of your manuscript. I need to be sure about the journal. I need to double check if this journal is peer reviewed to the right level or not. I need to double check if this journal is one of the predatory journal or not. I will give you today some tools just to check if this journal is from the predatory journals or not. And of course, I need to read the journal aims and the scope, because some of the papers, and this is one of the most common problems, as I mentioned in the previous slides, most of the papers can be rejected due to the out of scope of the journal, which is not aligned with your manuscript scope and target. Of course, after finding the right journal or having that specified kind of the list of the journals, I need to go to the journal website. I need to read what's called the guide for authors. The guide for authors help us to have the same format of the paper that we would like to just submitting to that journal to be aligned with the format requested by the journal. I need to check if the journal is invitation only or not. Some journals only accept articles after inviting the author to submit it, so I need to double check with that one. I need to review the recent publication in each candidate journal. So I need to prepare the priority list of the journal, and the first one that will be the candidate journal. And to having a sample of such publications in that candidate journal, I need to review some of the recent publications, find out the hot topics, and all of these can give me some trust about the scopus of the journal that will be aligned with the scope of your manuscript. And of course, I need to take into consideration the type of your article. As I mentioned in the first slide about the research preparation cycle, I need to decide the publication type. I need to decide if it's a full length, it's a letter, it's a review, it's a research output. So I need to take into consideration the type of the article that I would like to publish. Of course, I need to ask myself if I'm able to publish in an open access or not. The open access just paying to publish. So you need to pay some charge, and these charges for what is called open access journals. So the open access journals most commonly been called as a gold open access. Some of the other journals called hybrid journals, and these hybrid journals can have both, can have the open access criteria and the traditional criteria. You can decide if you can publish in open access or not if you have funding for that. So if you are going into a project that you are working with your colleagues and you have some money comes from the funding sponsor or some of the funding from your institution, for example. So you can, at this stage, you can publish in an open access journal. Of course, I need to identify the readership community. I need to know exactly my main target or my main output from my manuscript. Is the audience should be locally or regionally or internationally. See, so this is something that I need to consider it. I need to get advice from my library team, your supervisors, and your colleagues as well regarding how far is your manuscript readable enough and clear in their information delivering to just take care about the language and the exact meaning that I'm trying to deliver in my manuscript. Of course, after having that kind of priority list of the journals, I need to check the journal performance and the metrics. And I can check the journal performance and metrics from different tools. And with that, we will explain that later in the upcoming slides. To be careful about the predatory journals, most of the predatory journals use the gold open access model because they are asking for money, and more papers accepted equals to more income to the predatory journal. But not all the open access journals are bad, and not all traditional ones are good as well. I need to double check while I'm just checking if this journal is one of the predatory journal or not. I need to go through into depth about the peer review process. If it's clear enough, if all the people in the committee, in the peer review process are known, and they are already exist, so I can't be fear about that. But if I have some doubt, I have some missing information about that peer review process, I have to doubt about that kind of journal. Of course, if I couldn't identify the editorial board members, that give me some of untrust about this journal, and I need also to check in the tools that we will explain today if this journal is exist in that kind of tools or not. As we will see here in that slide, we have some tools here that enable us to check if this journal is from the predatory list or not. So the first one is the think, check, and submit. This is the free platform. This kind of platform gives you like a checklist. It asks you many questions, and you can respond to all of these questions based on the information you have about specific journal. And after responding to all the questions they are offering via their platform in Think, Check, and Submit, they give you a recommendation. If you have the minimum criteria of that information about that journal, and please go and submit your manuscript, or you give you another recommendation that you don't have the minimum information needed for trusted journal, and please don't submit your manuscript. This is a very good tool to check if this journal is predatory journal or not. Another kind of tool that enables us to having a list of journals and to select the appropriate one from this list is what's called Find Journals or Journal Finder. The Journal Finder here is a free platform as well, and you can have this kind of tool having a very specified keywords. Upon these all keywords, this kind of platform can give you the recommendations of the journals that's aligned with the keyword that you are trying to write down on the platform. So they're asking for your paper title, they're asking for the paper abstract, and any keyword that you have already mentioned in your manuscript. After writing down the paper title, the paper abstract, the keywords included in your manuscript, then you can click on Find Journals. This platform gives you some of the journal that's related to the keyword that you have written in the paper title, abstract, and keywords. And this is another kind of guidance that gives you some titles or some names of the journal that's related or that might be appropriate and suitable to your manuscript. So far, we find that we can make the list of the journals from the references that we have already cited in the manuscript. And another kind of a tool that enables us to have that kind of list is what is called Journal Finder. So after finding all of these names of journals from the references we have in our manuscript, from the tool of Journal Finder, we need to ordering them. We need to put it in order based on your priority. So some of people just trying to prioritize and making that order based on the speed. So they need to publish as much quicker as they can. This can be your priority. Some of the people just trying to publish in a high impact journal. So the priority in the priority list based on the ordering that will be based on what is called the metrics. To check the metrics of these journals, we can use many tools. We have two tools. I will present two tools today for checking the metrics and the performance of the journal. What is called Journal Insights. Journal Insights is also related to provided by Elsevier, and this is a free platform. In that platform, I can write down the name of the journal that I'm checking its performance and the metrics. And once I write down the journal, I can find all the metrics that evaluate the quality of the journal and also give you some insights about the speed and the reach and how many people publishing in that specific journal, over how many countries all the publications comes from that's published in that journal, and what is the time for that journal being allowed for the first response from the editor to the author. So it gives you some ideas about the impact of the journal, the speed of the journal, and how many people around the whole world publishing in that journal. So all of this information can be investigated and can be extracted from the Journal Insights platform. The other robust platform, which is called Scopus, and we already know about Scopus, we have mentioned that before, Scopus that gives you, this is an abstract and indexing platform, and it has all the resources that's coming out from more than 7,000 publishers, and that give you also the metrics and the performance of each journal, if it's publishing by Elsevier or even by other publishers. So I can get more information from Scopus about the performance and the metrics. So based on all of this information, I can do my homework, I can do my priority list for the journals, and I can order the journals based on my priority. Of course, if this journal is publishing by Elsevier and I need to go and get further information and I need to go to what is called guide for authors to know the format, to know everything that's requested by the journal, I can go to the journal via using Science Direct. So via Science Direct, I can go to the journal name and I can check the guide for authors to double check with the format, to double check with all the information, maybe the word limitation for the abstract and the entire manuscript. So if I need any further information about the formatting of the paper, before trying to submitting to the journal, I can find it in Science Direct. And again, this is only for the journal that's publishing by Elsevier. So what is Scopus? In a very quick overview, Scopus is an abstract and indexing platform that has all the resources coming out from more than 7,000 publishers. It includes more than 80,000 affiliation profile and more than 82 million items, including the author profiles and the affiliation profiles as well. So it has more than 4.5 terabyte data stored in their content repository. It delivers all the metadata provided by the publishers, all the publishers, more than 7,000 publishers, including the author's name, the affiliation, the document title, the year, the source title, the volume, the issue, the citation counts, all the sources and the DOI of all the documents involved in the database of Scopus. It has more than 1.7 billion cited references and more than 70,000 institutional profiles and more than 16 million author profiles. Of course, all the data that's in the database of Scopus coming out from different countries, from different regions, not only from Middle East, for example. So it's from Middle East and Africa, North America, Western Europe, Latin America, and many countries. So it has a variety of resources, and you can find many suggestions from the journals list, and you can find also all the original countries for all the journals. Of course, it has many kinds of fields, not only the resources that are specified to specific field, but it covers all the fields. So it has a huge database. So you can find any journal from any subject field. You can find any journal from physical science, health science, social science, and life sciences as well. Not only the journal that we can looking for, maybe we are looking for some conferences as well. Maybe we can looking to another kind of conference that we can publish our paper in. So you can find the journals, and you can also find the conference that is published internationally and it's indexed in Scopus as well. Especially for the people who is searching and looking for academic promotion, maybe they are needing to submit or publish their work in a Q1 and Q2 journals, for example, and sometimes some of the international conferences. So this is the best way to find the conferences via using Scopus as well. Of course, all the data in Scopus is back to 1888, which means that we have a huge amount of resources in the database of Scopus. Why Scopus is really important? Because it has a very robust re-evaluation process each year. And we have two kinds of re-evaluation process. Re-evaluation process of all the journals and resources that's already indexed in Scopus, and another re-evaluation process for new titles suggested that they are trying to apply to be indexed into Scopus. So we have two tracks here. The re-evaluation process to the title that's already indexed in Scopus, carried out each year in June, and 51% of the existing titles in Scopus can be no longer meet the Scopus criteria. This is for the first track. For the second track, for the title that's applying to be indexed to Scopus, for example, I have, for example, 3,500 title suggestions per year on average. They are just applying to be indexed in Scopus. After the re-evaluation process from the committee, they are just choosing 39% of the 3,500 to meet the Scopus minimum criteria. And after another re-evaluation process, they found that 46% out of the 39% out of the 3,500 can be accepted to be indexed in Scopus, which means that from 3,500, the only accepted is around 630. So this is only just an example to give you how this process and evaluation is structured, and they are also just trying to having the minimum and meet the quality and the criteria of a Scopus indexation. The committee that's trying to re-evaluate the content in Scopus, if it's already indexed or just applying to be indexed, it's called the Content Selection and Advisory Board. And these members in the committee are expert in all fields and trying to evaluate the journal performance and all the resources performance each year. For the Scopus profiles, as we mentioned, we have author profiles, article profile, affiliation profile, and also the author can use what's called author feedback, whether to change his affiliation, sometimes to correct his name, sometimes to add more papers that's not included in his profile, or just removing any papers that's not related to the author anymore. So I can make such kind of modification of your profile by using the author feedback wizard. So going further, I just need to rely here to the different kinds of profiles. As we can see, this is the author profile, this is the affiliation profile, and here is today's content about the journal impact. As you can see that there are many criteria and many metrics here can be used to evaluate the journal. We can see CITO score, SGR, and SNP. The average value of all of these metrics globally is equals to 1, which means that if the CITO score is more than 1, that will relate to a high quality journal. And if the SGR is higher than 1, it's also related to a high quality journal. And the SNP, if it's beyond the 1 and the average value, that will be a high quality journal as well. So I can make that kind of priority list and ordering of the journals based on all of these metrics, on CITO score, HGR, and SNP, and also what is called CITO score percentile. The CITO score percentile, it's of the fourth metric here. We can see in the demo, I didn't mention that in the slide, but it has a value between 0 and 100, and we can divide this range into 4 quarters. If the journal has a percentile between 75 and 100, which relate to a Q1 journal, and if the journal is from 50 to 75 percentile, this is the Q2 journal, and if it relate to the range between 25 and 50, that will be a Q3 journal, and from 0 to 25 percentile, that's a Q4 journal. So by understanding the CITO score percentile, we can identify the Q1 journals, the Q2 journal, and the Q3 journals. And if it's really important for you to publish in higher quartile journal because of your academic promotion or any other kind of reason that you can have, so this is the best way to ordering the priority of the listing of your journal based on the percentile that can be found in Scopus. This is evaluating to the article, so I can also get some articles from the journal that I need to publish in and evaluate the article quality. So the article quality can be defined by many things or by many metrics. By the citations received year by year, this is one of the metrics that evaluate the article. And another kind of metric is the field-weighted citation impact. The average of the field-weighted citation impact value globally is 1, and this is the most important than the citation actually. This is give you how far this article impact and advance the knowledge in the field. And if this impact is higher than 1, which related which make an indication that this article have a very strong advanced knowledge to the field, and that gives you a very good indication of the quality of the journal that's publishing that kind of information and article. So I can also rely to the article metrics beside the journal metrics to decide which journal is the best journal for my perspective. Another kind of metrics to the article level, it depends on what is called the P.O.Box. And P.O.Box here give you an indication about the social interaction of that article. So the social interaction of the article among the scientific community can be represented by the usage, the captures, the mentions, the social media, and the citations as well. And how many readers who read that kind of article, that give you a very good indication about the social interaction among the scientific community based on the information represented in that article. This kind of metric, which is P.O.Box, this kind of metric is really important for the recently publication that doesn't have much time to receive citations, for example. If these recent publications is very recent and doesn't have much time to be cited, so the best way to identify the quality of that article is by going and see what does the P.O.Box say. What is the P.O.Box metrics among the scientific community and the social interaction for that kind of article. So let's go out from, I excuse all of you just to go out from the presentation and trying to demo all the tools that we have mentioned in our slide. So I will share my screen and here we go. So this is we will start with Scopus. So this is the Scopus, and to go straight away to that journal that's related to our topic. So I can go to sources in Scopus. And once I go to sources, I can find different subject fields and different journal titles. So yeah, this is the subject area, this is the title, the publisher, and the ISSN. But if I'm just looking for a journal, so I will click on title, and once I click here, I can find that for the subject area, I can find many subject areas here based on the subject area of my interest, based on the subject area of my manuscript. I can decide, I can have a list of the journals. As I mentioned, we need to have the list of the journals from the references that we have in our manuscript. And the second step is to have this list of journals that can be aligned. There can be such as common journals between the list of the references I have in manuscript and the list of references or the titles of the journals that can be found in Scopus. So for example, I just working for a very specific maybe field about catalysis, for example. So once I just click on catalysis here, I will click on apply. So once I choose this kind of subject field, I find that I have 79 results. So these are all the journals that are indexed in Scopus that's related to the subject field of catalysis. And I can also trying to filtering all of these journals. If I'm just looking for the first quartile, which is the Q1 journals, the second quartile is the Q2 journal, the third quartile is the Q3 journal, and the fourth quartile is Q4 journals. I can also select if you need the journal or if you need the conference proceedings or even a book series, if you are just trying to publish book chapters, for example. So if you are focusing on publishing your book, so you are just need to select on the book series here. So I can click on the journals or I can click on the conference proceeding. Whatever I would like to publish my paper depends on the type of my manuscript and the type of my publication. So if I just clicking on the journal, I can apply, and then I can find that I have 71 results. And the first, of course, the leading one is Nature Catalysis. I can go further and see the difference and different journals here. And for all of these journals, I can find the highest percentile, which I mentioned the percentile, it's from 0 to 100, and we can divide it into 4 quarters. So the Nature Catalysis have a 99% percentile, which means these are Q1 journal. This is the citation received, and this is all the documents published in that journal from 2018 to 21, and this is the percentage of citation. And I can ordering all of the journals depends on what exactly the metric you need. This is the SNP, this is the SGR, this is the publisher if you are looking for the publisher. If you are focusing on publishing in a specific publisher, I just can select the most appropriate publisher if I would like to publish with a specific publisher. So I can go to all of these metrics to decide what is the most appropriate journal for my manuscript. I can see here the Journal of Catalysis, so I can click on that journal. And once I click on any journal, it will open a new window, a new page, and this page will explain into detail all the metrics of that journal. So this journal is already covered and indexed in Scopus. The published here is Elsevier, and you can find this is the site score, and this is 13, which is 13 times the average value, and this is lead actually to a high quality journal. And this is the SGR, which is 1.9, which is almost twice the global average. And the SNP value is 1.4, which is beyond the 1 value. And all of these metrics give me an indication that this kind of journal is really with high quality. And I can go further to see that it can cover and publish different categories. It's not only in catalysis, I can also cover in the chemistry field, specifically in the physical and theoretical chemistry, and also we can publish in chemical engineering as a major field, especially in catalysis. So it gives you some open doors about the different field that can be accepted in publishing in the journal. And related to each kind of subject, I can find here the percentile. So the percentile for the physical and theoretical chemistry under the umbrella of chemistry is the 94th, which means this is a Q1 journal in physical and theoretical chemistry under the umbrella of chemistry field. And for chemical engineering, the percentile is 85th in the catalysis under the umbrella of the chemical engineering field, which also means that's a Q1 journal in chemical engineering and catalysis specific field. So this gives you, and many more categories can be found in other journals and can give you an indication of each subject field and how is the Q and the quartile, the percentile for each field. And some of the academic promotion rules require to publish in a specific Q1 or Q2 journal in specific field. So it's important to understand the percentile here and the different subject areas and categories for that specific journals. So this is for the journal, which is called the Journal of Catalysis, for example. I can go to find journals, as I mentioned before in the slides. After finishing the draft of my manuscript, I can write down the paper title. I can write down here the abstract. I can write down the keywords and then find journals that give you another list of journals. So we have now 3 sources to have that kind of list of journals. Your references in your manuscript, the scopus based on the specific and the subject field you have already can choose from the filtering criteria in scopus, and also you can find a list of journals by using journal finders, by writing down your title and your abstract and your keywords. After finalizing this list and after ordering the list based on my priority, I need also to get more information about the metrics and also about the timeline of having that kind of a publication successfully published in that journal. So for example, this journal, which is Journal of Catalysis, in Scopus, just give you here the CITE score, the SGR, the SNP, and also the percentile, as we mentioned. But here in Journal Insights, and this is for free platform, I can just write down here the name of the journal, Journal of Catalysis. And once I write down the Journal of Catalysis, it will give you also the CITE score, the SNP, and the SGR, beside having what's called the impact factor. The impact factor is another metric to evaluate the journal, but it's based on the Web of Science database. So they are similar. So CITE score is similar to impact factor, but the CITE score depends on the database of Scopus. However, impact factor depends on the database of Web of Science. Sometimes the impact factor just be calculated based on 2 years before, and some of the impact factor evaluation based on the 5-year before. So if I'm just want to evaluate and calculate the impact factor based on 21, so I will use the 2 years, which is the 2 years impact factor, and here are the 5-year impact factor. So I can get the information about the CITE score, impact factor 2 years, and 5-year impact factor, the article influence, and the SNP and the SGR, the acceptance rate. And of course, I can see the speed, I can see the reach, and the content of all the publications inside that particular journal. So I can read down here a summary of the journal. I can go to the journal homepage from that one, and I can, because it's published by Elsevier, so I can bring the information of the journal, maybe from the Journal Insights and also from Science Direct, as we will see in a minute. So I can go to the journal home to see the homepage and the website of the journal itself, and to go to read what is called the guide for authors, as we mentioned in the slide. So maybe it will, it will bring to me to the Science Direct homepage. Yeah, so this is the Journal of Catalysis. Well, this is Science Direct. So this is Science Direct homepage. This is supports open access. You can find here guide for authors, as I mentioned. This is the CITES score, and this is the impact factor. And this is here appeared in Science Direct platform because this journal is published by Elsevier. The last thing for today is that think, check, submit. And this kind of platform that give you some trust about the journal, if you have some doubt about the journal, if you need to check if this journal is predatory journal or not, you can go to think, check, and submit. You can go down. You can see here some questions. You need to reply to all of these questions as per the information you have already about the journal. So after replying to all of these questions, of course, honestly, so you can go to submit your responses. And after submitting your responses, you can download your results here. The results will coming out with the minimum answers or the minimum required criteria you need to trust this journal. So they give you a recommendation if you can trust this journal and submit your manuscript, or not trusting this journal and don't submit your manuscript. Of course, if you have found your journal in Scopus that gives you an idea and very credible indication that this journal is a trusted one, and of course, if you find it in Science Direct as well. But if you have a new journal or something like just trying to emailing you very excessive emails to just trying to publish in that specific journal, and you have doubt about this journal, so you need to check this journal first in Scopus, Science Direct, Journal Insights, and if you still have doubt, you can check it in via using this platform, think, check, and submit. So I think this is all for today. I can conclude the session now. And as usual, we need just to share with you all the links for the certificate and the survey if you would like to add any survey or any comments for the session of today. So this is all shared with you via the chat box, and you can go to the URL directly. You can find the web page and the page of the session of today. You can write down the code and retrieving your certificate for your attendance today. So thank you so much for being with you today, and looking forward to seeing you in the second webinar. And thank you so much. And I'm waiting for your questions now. Thank you.